You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Micheal Pope.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. It's 8 a.m. and it is time to get on the journey, get on the Life is a Sacred Journey train. And this morning, I light this candle as a sign of hope, gratitude, thanksgiving for the life of my granddaughter who joined this world yesterday. So welcome, baby girl. You are joining a mighty, mighty family, and I am thankful that you are here. So this morning on Life is a Sacred Journey, we have the opportunity, I'm always so amazed at the number of people that we have had on this platform, the enormous amount of information that we have shared with you over however long it's been. And today I'm excited because we get to talk about how to thrive through crisis, but we also get to have the opportunity to meet Dr. Nelva Lee, who is the CEO and co-founder of the MiTio, which means Medical Interpreting and Translating Institute Online. She is a native of Panama, speaks fluent Spanish, and is certified by the Language Testing International. Dr. Lee was the director of the Grady Health Systems Interpreter Program in 2002. Dr. Lee was the subject of matter expert in creation. I've looked at all her videos last night and I was just like, whoa, I can't believe she's coming that Life is a Sacred Journey. But I know why. It's because she understands that as we bump into each other, particularly in medical settings and sometimes in nonprofit settings, where our hearts are good, we want to do good, and we think because we have this incredible vision to do good that we're doing good, and sometimes we're doing harm, right? We're doing harm. And language and ethnicity and culture, all the things that make us rich human beings, right? Makes this world like a really beautiful garden to live in, becomes the thing that tears us apart. And therefore, there's no productivity, organizations fall apart, lives fall apart, people get disheartened, and they feel oppressed. So it is my honor and my privilege on the day after my granddaughter's birth to welcome Dr. Nelva Lee to Life is a Sacred Journey. Good morning and welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey, Dr. Lee. It is so good to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I am so excited. One, I want to talk a little bit because before we get into what the topic is like living through crisis and but I have been engaged in the conversation about equity and oppression and it's a hard platform to be in because people hear things from their life experiences that maybe I didn't have. So when I use a particular word or tell a particular story, it's not offensive to me, but it may be to the other person. And I realize that we're using words interchangeably in the wrong. We say diversity when we actually mean equity. We use equity when we actually mean inclusion. And so could you unpack that before we move in so we have a level playing field? And again, welcome.
Thank you, Micheal, for that opening. So basically, diversity is having a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ethnicities within your organization or your group, right? Whereas equity is those people within that organization having the same level playing field, whether it's moving up in a progression that they can all count on, not having it different from one group from the other. For example, women notoriously earn a lot less than men for the same job, right? So that's equity. Right?
Okay.
But then you have the same issues going on with people of diverse cultures having the same issues as far as moving up the ladder. And then when we're talking about inclusion, just take a look at the United States, for instance. Blacks are allowed to vote, a lot of other things, but they're not allowed to have the same freedom to walk around, right? They don't feel included in society in many areas because of their skin color, whether it's Hispanics the same way. So inclusion is about being part of the conversation and being part of the solution. Mm-hmm. So that's why they're very different, but they are all really coming at the root cause, which is racism, oftentimes, and prejudice, right? And oftentimes people that are in the positions of leadership don't really see that because they don't think of themselves as racist or prejudiced. But if they're putting together organizations that are inclusive and diverse and equitable, then it's viewed by those that are outside of that organization as such.
And it's, you know, I'm so glad you're here this morning. I just really thank you so much. It creates when we, because I believe, okay, let me start over, friends, because I got so much in my head this morning. I got the baby on my mind. I got Dr. Lee on my mind. I live in a paradigm where I believe if we get to the root cause of the isms, whether it be racism, ableism, ageism, that if we get to the root cause, which is our lack of understanding of each other, our inability to communicate because we don't understand each other, and because the system itself is innately colonized, I'm going to use that language, and please, friends, don't get offended. You know, this is the thing. We're never going to change this world. We're never going to change anything. I don't care if Dr. Lee comes and brings her book and all her talent and skill. If we just sit in a room and listen and don't communicate about what we learn, we may break each other's hearts. You know what? We will. But then we got to move on and figure out how to move and shift through it. And Dr. Lee is saying right now, we need to understand the terminologies, and that in order to get through this current crisis of division that we're living in, I mean, we just talked about affirmative action yesterday. I don't even know the outcome of all that craziness. But Dr. Lee, help us to understand how all this kind of becomes this vortex of, I mean, I feel like we're going back in time. Everybody knows, I'm 66 years old. So I've lived through a time of segregation. I've lived through a time of, we got to make it right, and we got to have affirmative action, and we got to, you know, bust people out of their neighborhood. I was bused. To, oh yeah, everybody get an education, to now people can't afford the education. We've leveled the playing field, but people still don't get paid, and we think we've leveled it. So talk to us about this whole, I don't even know what to call it.
It can be a little depressing if we look at it that way, for sure. I don't necessarily think that we're going backwards.
Okay.
Ms. Pope, I think what's happening is that there were a lot of pockets throughout the nation that never really embraced the changes. And those pockets are now being given a voice. Whereas before they were tapped down, right? And said, no, you had your turn. Now it's time to get everybody else up to par. Well, those voices are now being given the power and being given the limelight and the microphone. And social media definitely has allowed them, even though they were small pockets, it's given them a much larger megaphone, if you will. And obviously the previous president did a lot to encourage that as well. And so that I think that's really what's going on. It's not so much that we're going backwards, but there's still a lot of upward mobility within all groups. If you want to really become upward mobile, you can. There's no systemic government regulation that is keeping you from upward mobility. However, there's the systemic government leftovers
okay,
that created the inequalities that a lot of people are still finding themselves in. So, I do want to make that distinction.
No, I think that's good because again, it's all perspective. It's also where we live in the world. Like geography plays a major role in some of this understanding. And then when we move out of our home, out of our family, chosen family, love place, into the workplace or into the faith-based community or wherever we move, we shift, right? And as you say, yes, upward mobility is there for all of us. And how do we create an environment within these pockets of organization where we take our lives so that we grow? Is that what it's called MiTio, I believe is the name of your company that you have co-founded. And tell us about how you take that, what you just said, that paradigm, that understanding, because there's going to be people like me who say, we haven't gone forward, right?
Not sufficient, for sure. I'm not denying that there's still quite a bit of not just Blacks, but Hispanics and other races that have not fully realized the American dream. That is
right.
Right, that is a reality. That's a fact. And so, but at the same time, we do have the ability to. If people are still coming from other countries and creating the American dream, that means that those of us that are here have that ability as well. So it's two different things. And one of the things that we focus on in my company with our diversity, equity, and inclusion is that we don't just get on the employers to change their environment, because they have to. They have to change the environment. They have to make it more diverse, more equitable, more inclusive. However, we also focus on the employees themselves. We tell them, it's your responsibility to learn about the different cultures. It's yours that are in your organization and in your community. It's your responsibility to learn about how you deal with challenges and make sure that you're dealing with it appropriately. Make sure that you are learning from the challenges and the crises that are coming at you. And we give you the tools to do that. So yes, we have a whole course on culture mapping. We call it because people from different cultures around the world view the world differently. They have a different perspective, and you have to understand where they're coming from in order for you to be able to communicate and work with them effectively. But you also have to be able to be a person that takes responsibility for the way that you perceive and you deal with challenges. Because if you're looking at everything as life happening to you, you're going to have a negative reaction to the world. Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you, right? Yes. And so we have to be people that look for the positive in every situation, and we have to be people that look for the growth in every situation. And that is one of the things that we hone in on in our DEI consulting. And we talk a little bit about the book that I wrote, Be the Superhero of Your Soul. Yes. So that's also included in the curriculum because we want to equip individuals to be able to have full control over their lives and their situations.
And I love that because even in our organization here, we began as we were coming out of the pandemic to look at our culture and how the pandemic had changed our culture.
Yes.
And we did DISC. And so we found out about each other, how we navigate our spaces, how we make decisions, and not to use it against each other, but to empower our teams so that we would understand that somebody's a D, which means they don't need all that background information that you might want to, but it doesn't mean they don't respect it. Or if you're in, all of that. And I have to tell you, it's really changed the way we've looked at things as individuals. And it stopped us from saying, they don't understand me, or I can't work with that person because they're too slow. It got us to understand, well, if we need something done expeditiously, then we need to actually verbalize the timeline, not assume that the other member of the team is going to understand it. And verbalizing it then takes the burden off the other member. They're fulfilling the objective of the team, but then the rest of the team is not in anxiety waiting for something to happen that person didn't even hear you say, because it's not a part of the way they develop their mind process. Can you, because I know you, I see you smiling, so I know
what you're talking about.
Yeah. So,
well, I think that's amazing that your team took the responsibility to learn about different personalities. Basically, is what you did. And you realize that they're not against you. Your coworkers aren't against you. They just have a different way of responding and a different need for the way that they want to consume information and information for your to move forward. And I love that. I think that is exactly what our company really aims to equip organizations to do, is that you have to take responsibility. You just can't sit and blame and complain.
Right.
I'm not going to anywhere with that. And there's so much information out there to equip us, individually and as teams, to really work effectively together. So
and
I love
a toolkit, right? It becomes you create your own organizational toolkit, and you're not just clip arting, what I say, your team, where you're like looking at the list today and going, oh, we don't have enough Asians. So when we go for that grant, we need to, because it doesn't matter if you throw us all in the room together, right? I mean, I call it clip arting because, you can pull.
It's all up there on the walls, but is it really ingrained in your culture? That's what.
Yes. So when we talk about crisis, and I think the pandemic was a crisis.
It was for sure.
Yeah, the envelope opening up in the new 21st century about Black Lives Matter was major for us. Asian hate was major for us. I mean, we started verbalizing and giving vocabulary, thank you, helped me to see vocabulary to experiences that once were not so in, like you said, social media.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that create a shift for us? And then how do we work through that now that I'm not going to say over the pandemic, but we're continuing to move through it?
Right. Well, for the most part, we've gone through the major parts of it, right? We're not seeing the huge depths like we were in the 2020 and 2021. I think the main reason that I wrote the book was as a response to the pandemic, because I was seeing a lot of people, especially young people, really dealing with the stress of it with a lot of anxiety, depression. We know that suicide rates skyrocketed. It's estimated that by 2050, suicide is going to be the leading cause of death in America. And so the book was really as a response to that. I wanted to highlight the tools that us older people, if you will, have learned through the years on how to deal with challenges, right? And how to deal with crisis. And it saddened me to see so many people dealing with the stress of the pandemic in such negative ways. Some people took the pandemic and changed their lives for the better. It was whether it was with their family members, whether it was with their business, but so many more found it to be such a huge obstacle and challenge for them. And obviously, there were many people that lost family members. That was huge. We're not minimizing any of the hurt. What I am saying is that when crisis comes, we have to choose how we're going to respond to it, right? We're going to either respond to it in a positive way that's going to propel us, or we're going to respond to it in a way that's going to keep us held back and constrain us. And that is all up to us. Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it. That's a Dale Carnegie quote. And I truly believe that. It's really all up to us how we respond to the challenges that come our way. And as a society, especially as Black women, as we are, we have to really equip those in our community to be able to respond better to crisis. Okay, when things happen, oftentimes we find in our community that we are suffering from increased, drug and alcohol abuse, or physical domestic issues, fathers leaving the family, things to that nature that really make it even worse for the future generations, right? If we're not handling crisis in the right way, all we're doing is perpetuating the crisis and making it even worse for our children and our grandchildren. We need to, as a society, especially as minorities, to really make sure that we're developing those tools that our great grandparents had, by the way. They went through a lot, and they had the grit and the determination and the know-how, really, on how to overcome things. And I feel like we've lost that to a certain extent. And so the book was a response to that.
And because you're also, I see that I read your bio, and you're planting the seeds for future generations because you are a mom as well. And yes. I know I get that, because that's been my life for my children. And now my granddaughter is the, like, oh my God, I gotta fix this now that I have I have this passion for this stuff. So when we talk about crisis and the elasticity, it does require, though, as I haven't read the book fully, I just got it, to be the superhero of your story. It requires some emotional intelligence.
Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So can you unpack that a little bit for folks? Because I don't think we all examine that part. I know I didn't on a regular basis. I do now, once I understood what it meant. But not all of us do.
Right. And I think, and thank you for asking that question. I think for so many of us, especially as parents, right, we elevate, academic intelligence, intellectual intelligence. But really, truly, if you want to track all the major successful people in the world, it was because they had high EQ, not so much high IQ. They had very high emotional intelligence. And what is that? That is the ability to be resilient, the ability to go with the punches, basically the ability to take whatever life gives you and turn it for the good. That requires you to have a state of mind, if you will, of emotional resilience, being able to be a positive person. It requires all of that of you. And you're not going to get that by comparing yourself with others. You're not going to get that by blaming. You're not going to get that by complaining. You're not going to get that by looking at everything that happens to you as though it was a negative thing. I often believe that challenges aren't necessarily negative. They're opportunities. Mm-hmm. There's a quote that says, challenges are opportunities brilliantly disguised as insurmountable barriers. It's just an opportunity. If you look for the opportunity, you will find the opportunity in every single challenge. And it's that mentality that actually allows you to have decreased stress in that situation, right? Because when we're stressed out, we can't think clearly. We don't make good decisions, right?
Yep.
We have the control. We have full control over how we react to things. We really do. We're the only thing that we can control in this world is our reaction. We can't control circumstances, but we can control our reaction to them. And I want to encourage everyone that you have the tools are available. And in my book, we talk a little bit about the I call them weapons at your disposal. Whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's eating healthy, exercising. These are things that everybody knows about, but we don't prioritize. Mm-hmm. And finding really strong community, people that really love you and support you. All these things are weapons at our disposal, but we're not prioritizing them And then consequently, when we get into areas of crisis and challenges where we need those tools, we don't have them to pull and to use readily.
Mm-hmm. And then we don't give ourselves permission to let go of those things, right? You know, I recently did an exercise in letting go of things like imposter syndrome, where I felt like I had to be because of the spaces that I find myself in. And so, you know, I got to show my intelligence. Why are they asking me? You know, you're constantly feeling like you're in a game show when you're in meetings and you're the only representative of your sometimes gender and race.
Exactly.
And yeah, so you begin to get, you know, you're like going in and, oh, how releasing it was for me, Dr. Lee. And what Dr. Lee is talking about, family and friends, and, you know, you're my family and friends in this world. When we let go of the person, well, let me put it this way. It had nothing to do with the adult Micheal. Didn't. It had to do with the little girl in middle school that had a teacher oppress her. And she got the tools, gathered tools to protect herself. And when she feels, because she still lives in me, like she's not seen in whatever thing we're in, she shows out. And she may not show out, like I may not let her come out, but she's showing out inside of me and creating chaos for me and division for me and all kinds of stuff. So you have to let that go. You have to, as Dr. Lee says, I look at that now like, oh, I thank that teacher for making me a warrior. Because
developing grit. Yes, she helped you get some grit.
Right? But it took me understanding, and Dr. Lee has just said, and get the book, friends, be the superhero of your story, because it is your story. And if I had allowed that incident with that teacher to take me to my deathbed, then that incident would have robbed me of so much. Right?
Yeah. And oftentimes, a lot of us live in someone else's story. Who knows if that teacher had a bad day, or maybe whatever. That teacher does not get to define who you are. And the beauty of it is that not only did it develop grit in you, right? But now you're also redefining it. So oftentimes when we develop maybe many call defense mechanisms at an early age, that's okay. It served us then, and if it's no longer serving us now, then that means that we're becoming more mature and more capable. So that little girl needed certain tools to handle that situation then, but the adult Micheal needs a little bit different things now. And so you're becoming more mature and more capable of dealing with challenges or even racism as an adult, right? And this is what I would tell all of your listeners. Challenges come to us in many different ways, right? It can come from a family member, from people in authority, from people that we love. Those are the worst, right? Betrayal. It can come from just complete strangers. It's okay. It can be a circumstance. It's okay. From wherever it comes, it is okay. I don't know if your listeners are Christian, but one of my favorite verses is all things work together for good, right? To those who love God. All things. So it doesn't matter if it's considered good or bad or indifferent. It's all going to turn out for my good. So always look for the good in whatever comes your way. If you have that attitude, not only will you not give your power to those people, those circumstances, right? Yeah. Those events, you won't give your power to it, but you will be empowered by it. Yep. You will be empowered by it because you know that in the end, it's for your good and for God's glory. And so my whole thing is, be your most best self in every situation. Okay. And you can do that. Everyone has the ability to do that.
Mhm. And letting go is a part of that process. And Dr. Lee talks about that. So, I mean, the book is, and again, I haven't finished it. So you know how I am, folks. I'll come back to you about the book once we do book talks. So be the superhero of your story. It is so important to know that. I love what you just said, that it's your story and you don't have to take in, don't be a part of that other person's story. I love that, Dr. Lee, because I can take myself out of that story if I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Dr. Lee, can you come live with us?
I want to share a little bit of just a little snippet of why I wrote this book. My childhood was not the best, Micheal. It's in fact, I gave you a little bit of a little snippet of it in the book. It's not an autobiography by any means, but I just give you a little snippet so that you know that I know what suffering is all about. However, without my childhood, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. And I know that there are people out there that talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, but how about we change that and make it post-traumatic success, because we can take any trauma and turn it into our success story, right? We can. And so I want to encourage everyone that you have the ability, you have the power to transform every situation for your good, whether it's racism, whether it's a systemic issue, whether it's with the government or with your organization that you're working at, whether it's in your family, whether you're just having family issues with a parent or a spouse or your child, whatever it is that you're facing, you have the responsibility to take that situation and turn it into the best possible outcome. And you not only the responsibility, but it's really capable. You have the capability to do that. So.
And you owe it to yourself, even as caregivers. I work with a lot of caregivers and they're not ready for the situation as they say, the hand that's been dealt to them. But at the end of the day, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. And it takes a moment. It's just like, when I first fell off of, when I was doing starting to do rock climbing and I kept falling and falling. I was like, okay, this is crazy, man. Good thing I have these strap things on me. But then I got stronger, guys. My upper body got stronger. My arms got stronger. And now I can scale. Okay. But
that's because you didn't give up.
That's the other thing. Yeah, you got to get back up. And I looked around. Yes, I was embarrassed because the little kids was going up all like above me. And I looked around and I'm like, okay. And I'm competitive. So I was like, this 6-year-old is doing this. Micheal, get your butt up and get up on that wall. So that's what Dr. Lee is talking about. It's about also being your best friend.
Yes, for sure.
Because we do it for everybody else. I'm not saying you shouldn't, because I get so much joy in loving the humanity around me. I do. I love every person that I meet, and I'm inquisitive. I'm like a little child, like, who are you? Like, but I am my best friend.
Yes.
Dr. Lee, please, before we run, please tell them.
Basically, what you're saying is that you give yourself grace. You do a lot of self-care. You love Micheal, and you don't allow yourself to beat her up. That's what you're saying. And if you don't love yourself, if you don't take care of yourself, no one else can, because they don't really even know how. So you have to start with you. Just like when you're in the airplane and they say, put your oxygen mask on before you give it to anyone else. You have to self-care. And we talk about that in the book as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Things that you can do for self-care. But it's so important. It's so important that we care for ourselves. We give ourselves the grace needed. We forgive ourselves for mistakes and get back up. My pastor loves to say there's no failure. It's either you win some or you learn some. There's no such thing as failure. The only thing that's a failure is if you quit. That's failure.
Right.
If you get back up and you learn from that mistake, you can learn from it and you can move on and you can get better.
One of my favorite songs is "We Fall Down, But We Get Up."
Yes.
Thing is just a sinner who fell down and got up. It's just like, yeah, I agree with that, and that resonates with my spirit, not just with my mind, but with my spirit, because I get that we have to fall. I mean, I'm going to be watching a grandchild learn how to walk, and I'm sure she will fall down a couple of times.
None of us learn to walk by just getting up and walking. That never happened to any human being. We all fell many, many times when we were learning to walk.
And we learned how to get up on our one knee first. And then
when did we forget to give ourselves grace for learning new things? And that's what keeps many of us from wanting to learn new things, is that we're afraid to fail. We're afraid to fall. Don't be afraid to fall. Just get up and do it.
Yes. And Dr. Lee, you talk a lot about language. And I think a lot of it is some of the words that we use, we've turned those, I'm going to show you what I keep near me. And I know you guys are going to laugh because you say you can look it up on your phone. But again.
Yes.
Okay, friends, look up the words you use. Stop thinking that the words you use are the meaning that you got from wherever you got it. Look them up, because I'm here to tell you half of the words that we use, we're using them incorrectly. To describe stuff, right? To describe our emotions, feelings, and they are words that have a negative vibration to them.
Yes, for sure.
And I learned that with my kids. It's like, you can say, I love you. That's kind of nice. That feels good. But when you say, oh, I love you, you have a good day. Yeah. You walk out the door totally different. Same words. Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Lee, before we leave you and you leave us, and please stay on as I say goodbye to folks, I want folks to have access to you, one, by your book, Be the Superhero of Your Story. I also know that your team does consultant work with nonprofits, MiTio, I love that, by the way, and all of that. So I want to make sure we have the information, they have the information to share, not only in their workspaces or church spaces, because I know a lot of churches now, the denomination that I live in is going through disaffiliation, and everybody's trying to figure out, how do we communicate now? What do we do? Where are we living? And you may need some help to get you through. And sometimes bringing in an outside facilitator is the best way to do that, because then everybody can be involved.
Yes.
Right? And so please tell them how they can find you. And your book, I know I just went to my bookstore and they ordered it for me. So I don't know. Talk about that.
So our consulting services, as well as our interpreting and translating services, you can find all of that on our website, MiTio.org. That's MITIO.org. But then we also have a foundation, the MiTio Foundation.org, and you can find the book as well as the companion course that goes with that. And for organizations that are interested in our DEI services, we do have a free course that kind of introduces you to what we do. That way there's no commitment, financial commitment as you're checking us out. So you can find all of that on our website, book a call, all of that.
And then you're located, but you can work with people across the world, because the world is a neighborhood, right?
That's okay. So but we have consultants all across the nation. So we are our headquarters is in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So friends, you this is a story, right? We always say once upon a time, right? Once upon a time You may have fallen down. Once upon a time, your organization had a culture that wasn't fueling, planting seeds of growth and inclusion. Once upon a time. But if you add Miracle Grow, all that good stuff to the plant,
Yes.
it's the end of the story, and the story never ends, by the way. It just keeps evolving. Then you have something very different. And I'm using the word legacy now, Dr. Lee, for obvious reasons. I'm in this grandmother mode. I
love it. Yes.
I'm going to be in that mode now, probably forever. But what is the legacy that you as an individual are leaving on the planet? Not worrying about what everybody, I love Dr. Lee said that. Don't worry about everybody else, Don't worry. We're responsible for our own story.
Yes. And for our response to that story.
Yeah, and our response to everything that happens in it. So Dr. Nelva Lee is my new BFF. I am so impressed by everything that she has done in her career. I called them treasure, all of her treasures that she is sharing with the world. I know that you can benefit from having diversity and inclusion in your community, whatever that community, whether it's faith-based, nonprofit, corporate, whatever title we've given it. I know that you can be changed when you fall down and get up and look at, as Dr. Lee has eloquently said to us this morning, you look at those things as just stepping stones to a magnificence. So I know all these things. I've experienced all these things. So I'm not telling you, she's not telling you because we haven't done the work. We've done the work and now we want to share it with you. Dr. Nelva Lee is the author of Be the Superhero of Your Story. So please, friends, go out into the world this weekend. Be the superhero of your story. It's a magnificent story. I don't care if somebody told you it was a caca story somewhere in your history. They lied to you.
They sure did.
And Dr. Lee has this magnificent smile as well that shows you can glow on the other end.
Yes, for sure.
And don't let anybody take it from you. Dr. Lee, your last words to our audience before we send them off into, I think for some, which is going to be a long 4th of July weekend.
Well, first of all, enjoy your 4th of July weekend. But thank you so much, Micheal. This was an amazing interview, and you are amazing women. I can see your glow in what you're trying to do for the world. And so you're definitely you epitomize what my book is all about, being a superhero, for sure.
Thank you. And friends, we end, and Dr. Lee spoke about this too. We end the show every Friday, and for some reason, it's making me feel a little emotional this morning, and I think it's because I became a grandmother. If you're out there and you've fallen down because of whatever words, somebody did something to you, you just feel like you've been bullied, because that's a big deal. And you feel like your life is not worth anything. You feel like you want to take your life. We end the show every Friday this way. You know that. Get a phone, find somebody, dial 9888 and get to the suicide hotline. Yes, they're backed up. Dr. Lee just told you the stats. They're backed up. You may have to stay on the line for a couple of seconds, but they will help you. And do not take your life. I know. I don't even have to be with you to know how hard this moment is for you. But dial 988. You'll get through it. Somebody will help you and they'll walk with you, and you will not be alone on this journey. I'm going to tell you why. Because if you take your life, you may not think that you matter, but you matter to this whole cosmic story. And so don't take it this is a burden, what I'm saying to you. Take it as a lifty up that the world would be yucky without you. So all of us here at Life is a Sacred Journey love you. 988 is the suicide hotline. If you are a church or organization, Start giving that number out. Stop acting like you all can solve the problems of the earth all by your doggone self, because you can't. We need to give people resources, because I'm gonna tell you what, suicides happen when you're asleep. Right, Dr. Lee? I might want to call Dr. Lee at 4 a.m., 3:30 in the morning when I'm feeling my most depressed, but my mother taught me not to do that. So I'm alone. 988. All right. So do that. Go out. You know how I end this. Pet a cat if that's your pet of choice. Hug a dog. You know that's my pet of choice. And definitely hug a tree, because the tree will give you knowledge and vibrations of life that you have never felt before. So go hug a tree, please, and tell the tree you love it, because you should, because you're breathing because of it. I'm just saying. And thank Dr. Lee for coming and joining us. Go to the website, find out about MiTio, get the book, Be the Superhero of Your Story. She even said that they have a study guide with it. Oh my gosh.
Free companion courses.
Yeah, companion courses and things. Come on, you guys, let's do this. We don't have to keep waiting for heaven. It's now.
Yes.
Okay? Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. And you people, excuse me, Dr. Lee, I got to tell these people, you people that are taking dynamite and shooting it off in your neighborhoods for the 4th of July, I'm confused. I'm just saying, I ain't mad at you, but I'm confused. When did we start using dynamite for the 4th of July? What happened to the sprinklers? So be safe, everybody. And remember, people, with the dynamite, somebody's dog, somebody's elderly person, you're scaring them to death. And if, you can do better. We love you. Peace. Have a good weekend, everybody.